Rich, fantastic stories, powerful weapons and spells, being drawn into a world and feeling like you're part of it, and usually a very prominent part of it. These are the things we love about our RPGs. Taking on the role of a skilled fighter, clever rogue, or mystic spellbender. Add to that hours of quests and exploration and a really well-crafted combat system, and you're sure to garner some attention at least. This is Kingdoms of AMALUR Reckoning. Released the first quarter of 2012 by 38 Studios and Big Huge Games and published by Electronic Arts, KOA Reckoning puts you in the role of the first success of the Well of Souls, a device created to bring people back to life in order to sway the tide of the war between the immortal race of Fae, the Tuatha, and the younger mortal races of AMALUR. Being reborn has freed you from fate, and you alone are free to make your own destiny, as well as change the fate of others. This allows your character to be played however you like, taking points in skill trees of might, finesse, and sorcery, or any combination of the three, to play however you like. The class system is really customizable and offers something for just about any type of playstyle. Any open world action RPG to come out in probably the next year or so will have to be compared to Skyrim. There's pretty much no getting around it. I'm having a bit of a hard time with that too. I think because I really like both games. Each has really good things to offer, and one will do one thing better while the other excels at something else. I think most fans of the genre will fall into one of two categories. Either you're burnt out from 100 plus hours you sunk into Skyrim and might be a bit begrudged to start at the bottom once again and do it all over again in Reckoning. Or like me, you've had a break from Skyrim for a bit and are ready to strap on your adventuring boots and have at it again. One of the greatest things about this game is the combat system. It's really fluid, fast-paced, and is very polished, even more so than we've come to expect in our action RPG titles. A variety of weapons and abilities adds a lot of fun to combat as well. Reckoning mode is really sweet too. It works similar to a limit break system. Bash on baddies enough and enter an empowered state for lots of power and speed, and to top it all off, a bonus to XP to boot. Also, it'll be a different weapon and finishing move for different foes, with a pretty sweet cinematic effect to it all. Artistically, I've enjoyed the sights and sounds of AMALUR. It's a lot more fantasy than Skyrim, whichever you like more is a preference thing, obviously, but it does it well. Todd McFarlane, most famous for his work with the Spawn series, is the mind behind the art direction in Reckoning. It isn't hard to recognize after you see a few of the more creepy looking creatures in the game too. Overall, I do like it a lot. Nothing wrong with snow-capped mountains, but I really like it when I can explore a high fantasy world full of cool creatures and rich lore. Speaking of lore, the game's fantasy story is by novelist R.A. Salvatore, famous for his Forgotten Realms novels and the Demon Wars saga. The story's pretty interesting in my opinion, but what's really nice is you're being told by some really talented voice acting. Not every character you talk to will have the same voice, and even little side quests have a story behind them. There are a ton of quests in KOA too. Almost too many sometimes. But I am definitely a side quest junkie. What's that? I have to find the gnome that resurrected me and fend off our inevitable doom and save countless lives in the ongoing war? But this guy in town asked me to retrieve his lost boot at the bottom of a lake surrounded by bogarts. He'll give me gold and XP too. I gots to help him. Alright, it's not that bad. But each side quest is a bit more involved than just go right outside of town and slay 5 kobolds. They'll usually take you to a small dungeon with more than a few mobs you have to contend with. Overall, I'm really happy with Kingdoms of AMALUR. Sad actually I don't have more time to play it and do every single quest and find every treasure chest and craft every potion I want to. I've already heard some talk of Game of the Year 2012 floating around the internet. While it's too early to say that, I'd agree it's not too early to set higher standards in Western RPGs, especially in the combat system. I'm looking forward to see what the world of AMALUR will have in store for us in the future. 38 Studios and Big Huge Games are certainly taking fate into their own hands.